In the initial scenes, we observe a young woman named Tammy waking up on a yacht after a tempest. Water was everywhere. Frantically, Tammy calls for her boyfriend Richard and attempts to leave the cabin, but her efforts are futile. The water inside is rising rapidly. Eventually, Tammy manages to get outside. She finds herself on a shattered yacht, surrounded by an endless expanse of ocean. Grasping the horror of her predicament, Tammy screams. The narrative then shifts back 5 months to Tahiti, in the year 1983. Tammy, who is journeying around the globe, decided to pause here for a while. Without a fixed destination, she desires to explore various places. To earn money, Tammy cleans yachts. She met a woman named Deb and mentioned she was born in San Diego. However, Tammy has no immediate plans to return home. Among other activities, Tammy is a surfer. She relishes conquering the waves, feeling complete freedom in those moments. One day, a handsome man named Richard docked nearby, and he quickly took an interest in Tammy. The next day, they crossed paths again. Richard invited Tammy to dinner that evening, and she eagerly accepted. Later, they met on Richard's yacht. He prepared dinner and shared that he had built the boat himself. He had been traveling solo for a long time. Tammy mused about the experience of being alone for extended periods. Richard admitted that it is perilous and frightening. Occasionally, he even experienced hallucinations due to the isolation and lack of human interaction. Yet, according to Richard, this is precisely what makes life worth living. Traveling solo, he felt rejuvenated. Tammy finds this perspective incredibly thrilling. Soon, the young couple ventured out into the ocean on a yacht. They truly enjoyed themselves. The story then returns to the present. Tammy continues to frantically call for Richard, but he is nowhere to be seen. She then tries to contact the Coast Guard, but all she hears is static. Tammy realizes she is stranded alone in the middle of the ocean. She weeps in despair, uncertain of her next move. Tammy reminisces once more. That day, she and Richard visited a stunning mountain river. Tammy loves extreme sports, so despite Richard's warnings, she planned to swim. Richard had never encountered such a daring girl before, and he liked it. Since then, the young couple has been inseparable. They realized they were more than just friends. Perhaps their meeting was destiny. In the present, Tammy spots a lifeboat through binoculars. This sight gives her hope. She tries to start the yacht but gets tangled in the sail and falls into the water. The yacht begins to drift away, leaving Tammy no choice but to swim after it. Exhausted, she manages to reach the yacht against all odds. After repairing the yacht, Tammy finds a pump and starts removing water from the cabin, then attempts to set the sail again. It was challenging, but eventually, Tammy succeeded. Her memories took her back in time again. On that day, Richard had given her a special gift, a beautiful dress. Tammy was overjoyed. In the present, she once again peers through the binoculars at the lifeboat, hoping Richard is there. This sight strengthens Tammy's resolve to act. She swims from the broken yacht to the lifeboat and descends into the water, reaching her beloved. Richard was injured, but fortunately, it wasn't fatal. Together, Tammy and Richard swam back to the yacht, and she helped him aboard. With tears in her eyes, she comforts Richard, promising that everything will be fine, though she isn't entirely convinced herself. Some time ago, Richard and Tammy were wandering through a local market, chatting about various topics. Richard gave Tammy a flower, symbolizing immortality. Later, they dined at a restaurant. Richard shared that he had built his yacht 7 years ago. Tammy, in turn, talked about her family. She was raised by her father's parents because her mother worked as a flight attendant and was constantly traveling. After finishing school, Tammy ran away from home and traveled around the world for the next 5 years. It was a truly wonderful evening. Richard and Tammy danced, not wanting to ever part. At one point, Richard proposed to his beloved the idea of embarking on a round-the-world trip. In the present, Tammy does everything she can to ease Richard's suffering. He urgently needs medical help, but Tammy has to rely solely on herself. She is simply grateful that her beloved is saved. In the past, the young couple is preparing for their upcoming voyage. They plan to visit Japan and several other destinations. Suddenly, Richard hears familiar voices. Peter and Christine Crompton invite the couple for coffee because Peter wants to discuss something. The Cromptons are planning a trip to London and need someone to deliver their yacht to San Diego, California. They offer a reward of $10,000 and return business class tickets. Although this diverges from their plans, Richard eagerly accepts. 2 days pass at sea. With Richard injured, Tammy has to handle all the challenges alone. According to her calculations, they have drifted far north, much further than anticipated. There are no shipping routes or airways in this area, and rescuers will not start searching for them anytime soon since everyone believes the couple went on a trip. This realization makes Tammy think they are doomed. Nobody knows where they are. In the past, Richard noticed Tammy feeling down. She confessed that she didn't want to be just a companion on his adventures. Tammy wasn't ready to return home yet, as she had entirely different plans. Richard told Tammy that he wouldn't go anywhere without her. He had searched for love around the world and now wouldn't let her go. Tammy felt warm at heart upon hearing these words. In the present, they are trying to orient themselves and figure out their next steps. At this pace, it would take them several months to sail to San Diego. Tammy suggests heading for Hawaii instead. Richard thinks it's a bad idea since it requires a 500-mile detour, but Tammy insists it's their only option. Following her plan, they set a course for Hawaii, embarking on a long and perilous journey. In the past, Richard and Tammy met Peter and Christine. Christine shared that they were rushing to London because her 94-year-old father was ill. Therefore, Richard's agreement to deliver their yacht to California would be a great help. The yacht turned out to be luxurious. When the couple went to the hotel for a drink, Richard persuaded Tammy to take on this adventure. With $10,000, they could travel for an entire year. Eventually, Tammy agreed. The next day, Tammy wrote a letter to her mother, informing her that she would be home in a month. Tammy managed to save some food and fresh water, but everything else was at the bottom of the ocean. Obviously, these supplies wouldn't be enough. Tammy recalls how their journey had just begun. They admired the sunset and discussed various topics, feeling absolutely happy with each other. It's been 5 days at sea. Tammy did the calculations and discovered they had deviated 60 miles from their course. It's nearly 2,000 miles to Hawaii. Tammy is slowly starting to lose her sanity. She is convinced they are doomed and no longer wants to hear any encouraging words from Richard. The sail snagged, and Tammy had to dive into the water to fix the issue, as it was significantly slowing them down. She succeeded on her second attempt. It has now been 10 days at sea. Tammy isn't feeling well, but Richard's condition is even worse. Tammy tends to him, fearing she might lose him. Soon, they were nearly out of fresh water, and their food supply wouldn't last a week. Richard suggests fishing. This goes against Tammy's principles as a vegetarian, but there is no other choice. Tammy dives into the ocean, but the fishing is unsuccessful. Richard tries to encourage her, saying that she is strong and can handle this. However, it turns out to be much more challenging than Tammy anticipated, and she fails again. Soon, it starts raining. This seems like a blessing, allowing them to replenish their freshwater supply. It has been 18 days at sea. Tammy managed to find some alcohol on the half-sunken yacht. In their desperate situation, it was a small comfort. Days pass slowly as the yacht inches forward. Richard apologizes to Tammy for getting her into this situation. She can't hold back her tears, but she wouldn't trade these memories for anything. In the past, sometime before the storm, Richard told Tammy about his mother, who had voluntarily ended her life many years ago. He still occasionally hears her voice. That same evening, Richard confessed his love to Tammy and proposed to her. Tammy is the exact girl he wants to spend the rest of his life with. Naturally, Tammy agreed. She loves Richard deeply as well. It has been 29 days at sea. Tammy woke up in the middle of the night to strange noises. A large ship was passing near them. Tammy starts signaling, but they go unnoticed. She becomes hysterical, fearing she might be hallucinating. Perhaps the ship wasn't real. Tammy realizes there is no escape for them. Now Richard has lost hope in a positive outcome as well. Yet, as long as they are alive, there remains a glimmer of hope. Richard's condition isn't improving. Tammy can't bear feeling powerless anymore. She persuades Richard to eat, though he can barely manage. There are 700 miles left to Hawaii. Most of their journey is behind them. Tammy recalls the day the storm began. Initially, Richard dismissed any concern, but the radio warned of an intensifying hurricane front. According to Richard's calculations, the storm would calm before reaching them. Tammy proposed altering their course, and Richard agreed, given the proximity of the hurricane. With each passing minute, the weather worsened. Richard and Tammy ensured the sail was securely fastened. It has now been 33 days at sea. Both Tammy and Richard are utterly exhausted. They keep talking to each other to stay awake. The weather is deteriorating again. The next day, Tammy decided to prepare for this. She also noticed that Richard's fever had worsened. In the past, on that fateful night, Tammy and Richard battled the elements. The storm had finally caught up with them, and it was clear that the situation was dire. In the present, Tammy created a shelter for them. She shared stories from her childhood with Richard. Her father often disappeared from her life, which made Tammy sad. When she turned 10, her grandmother forbade her father from visiting, which led to many arguments. During those moments, Tammy imagined herself far away. Now, she also wants to pretend that none of this is happening to her. On the night of the storm, Tammy tried to contact the Coast Guard to understand the best course to take. However, the storm was only gaining strength. The yacht swayed violently. When a massive wave approached, Richard told Tammy to go into the hold. As soon as she did, the wave overtook the yacht. Richard fell and lost consciousness. In the present, Richard woke up Tammy. She told him that she would have to let him go. Tammy loves Richard very much but understands that he isn't real. In reality, Richard perished the night of the storm. Tammy had been talking to him all this time to keep her sanity. Despite her exhaustion, Tammy continues her journey. Gradually, she comes to realize that she had been talking to herself all along. After the storm, she never saw Richard. From now on, she will have to endure this alone. Tammy eventually managed to catch a fish. Now she has food, which means all hope is not lost. She spent 41 days at sea. A bird landed on the yacht, indicating that land was likely nearby. Peering through binoculars, Tammy indeed spotted land ahead. She can hardly believe she's been saved. Tammy fired a flare, and soon she was spotted. As a precaution, she launched another signal flare. A ship approached her. The crew lowered food and water to Tammy and towed her yacht to shore. Some time passed. Tammy visited Richard's yacht. Looking at their shared photographs, she couldn't hold back tears. Tammy reminisced about the happiest moments now consigned to the past. The flower Richard had given her, symbolizing immortality, had long since withered. Tammy released it into the ocean in memory of her beloved. Then, the narrator recounts the true heroes of this tale. At the time of the shipwreck, Richard was 33 years old. Tammy, only 24, spent 41 days at sea and survived thanks to Richard, whose voice remained in her head. To this day, Tammy continues to venture out to sea.